We're currently parked up at Bargara beach, just outside of Bundaberg, and it's beautiful summery weather. Finally, we've left the frost behind and enjoying this beachside location. Both of us are super caffeinated right now because we had a wonderful coffee at Unknown Cafe. That's its name, Unknown.
A little bit of trouble finding it, but it was very good.
It was amazing, and we both had ginormous coffees and a complimentary batch brew. So we thought we'd take the opportunity to use this energy to record a little how we're going. This is our official first month of living on the road, and so we want to just check in with each other and check in with you. We're also going to be multitasking today, or at least Rowan is, and that's by making some van-made sourdough. We've got a very mature starter to work with, and we bake our bread on the stovetop, which works surprisingly well. Rowan gets 100% of the credit for the bread making, but I'm just going to do my best to narrate the process. This batch of starter was raised over 4-ish hours thanks to the Queensland heat, and it's nice and bubbly. And basically, once the starter has doubled in size since it's feeding, 100 grams of it is mixed into a bowl with water. In this case, we've used 350 mils of water and then separately mixed that with 500 grams of flour plus a touch of salt. We're still experimenting with 1/2 and 3/4 size loaves just to keep things nice and fresh. And once that's all mixed in, we cover the dough and we let it rest for about 30 minutes.
I've written down a bunch of questions. Jessie's seen some of them. She hasn't seen a lot of them. So we're going to see how we go.
Yeah.
All right, first one's a little bit of a silly question, but I've used it in the past just to kick us off. Get us feeling comfortable.
Okay.
All right, using only an emoji or a few emojis, how would you describe the trip so far?
Emojis. This is a guy in software. My favorite emoji, which I feel like describes how I feel when I'm really like in a state of wonder, which I am right now, is that little emoji with the 3 stars. You know the one? Describes being in a bit of a dream state and a space of wonder. And honestly, I've been feeling that. Like I really have. Every day when we're in a new place, when I see the full moon last night, or we rock up at this amazing beachside location, I'm like, 3 stars.
Okay, all right. Mine's that little purple devil emoji, you know? That one. Like I feel a little bit kind of like, ooh, like we're getting away with something. You know? Like there's something that like we've, you know, a little bit of guilt that we should be kind of working or, you know, doing like back in the city or doing something like that. But also just having a lot of fun and, you know, exploring. That and I think the octopus is always one. It's just like every day there's that kind of sense of like, what do we need to think about? Like, what do we need to kind of get on top of? And, you know, because you're always kind of living in the moment. There's a lot more kind of like figuring like where we're going to sleep tonight, how we're going to deal with that like grey water, where are we going to get new water, how are we going to get groceries, all those things that you kind of build habits around in your daily life, you kind of have to figure out on the road, and because they're always different, which is great. Like I think, you know, it feels like you kind of accomplish something every day as well. Yeah. How are your stress levels going right now?
My stress levels, look, they every day up and down. For the most part, I'm feeling a lot less stressed than I did back in real life. But full disclosure, I definitely had a day of anxiety yesterday. Wasn't really sure, you know, where we were going, what we were doing. It was very very unplanned, very unresearched, and it's always a growing point for me, I think. Yeah.
For me, it's kind of like a little bit of like butterflies every day, you know? Kind of like some days you handle that better because you don't always know what's going to happen. You don't know exactly where you're going to sleep. Like even if you plan something out, you might show up there and figure out that there's no spots left.
It can be full. Yeah.
But they're also kind of good stresses. They're kind of things that like you deal with in the moment. It's not a long-term stress. It's not something you're going to be agonizing over for longer than a day. And again, you feel very accomplished when you actually do it.
That's right. I feel like as long as you feel like you're not in danger, it's okay.
Yeah. What has been your favorite day so far?
My favorite day. Man. At the moment, we might stay one night in a place and then it's a another place the next night. But we decided that we would stay 2 nights in the same place. And that was at Rainbow Beach. And it was that day in between where we knew what our reach was for exploring the area. And so we started the day with this hike. And then, like, it was just, you know, oh, well, why don't we drive down to Inskip? And we went out there and had lunch. And it was a real classic van life moment. Like, this is what I anticipated for what good van life means. And it was being able to just, you know, go somewhere on a whim. You've got everything you need on your back.
Yeah. There are definitely days where you feel like you make the most of the day. For me, different answer, but I definitely agree with that, is I think the early on when we showed up, when we had a whole day in Lennox Head, it was up until, and it most, like, a lot of that was, it was up until that point kind of, it was all good, but we were still adjusting to it. Things kept breaking.
Still
we were
had
trying
our
to figure out
plumbing
what was
issues.
going on. A lot of issues showing up, and it suddenly this day came out where it was just full sunshine.
Yeah.
We were forced to do nothing.
It was
but
the weekend.
Like,
We couldn't,
sit. Well, every day's the weekend.
Every day's, I mean, it was the weekend, so we couldn't get our problems fixed. So we were like stuck, but in a good way.
We were literally just pulled up next to the beach and spent the whole day just in the sun decompressing. And then that night we caught up with a close friend, Liv, and her family, and just had an amazing dinner at their restaurant in Mullumbimby. And it was just like this real kind of like come down from a lot of stress. How much has it been meeting your kind of expectations so far? You know?
I think it has 100% met my expectations, because there's a lot of information out there. Like, obviously we know that there are shitty days when it comes to living on the road. Like, there's a lot of really like dirty rest stops that you'd be sleeping in, but also like where we are right now, like, that's amazing that we can just relax, park up to the beach, you know, we'll cook our lunch soon and just enjoy those moments. I think it really has met a lot of my expectations. The only part of it that hasn't quite met my expectations yet is the community. You know, like, I mean, both of us are absolute introverts, and so it's hard for us to connect with other people that might be traveling.
I think it's more than that. I think, like, there's people who keep to themselves quite a bit.
It's true.
And, like, they either come in their own groups when they know each other, and they kind of, like, form their own circles with their caravans, or everybody kind of just lives on their own and doesn't... Like, I mean, you know, we've definitely met some great people, though. You know, very, very kind, and people generally are extremely kind.
Very
like, there
helpful.
is that, there's that level, you know, of understanding of, like, we're all kind of through this together. But you're not really doing as much together.
No, I wouldn't hesitate to reach out to anybody who is at the campsites, the free camps in particular that we might be staying at. But it's I don't know, there's less communal opportunities than I perhaps anticipated.
Is there... Actually, I'm going to pause here. I need to go do my bread.
Oh, pause. After it's rested, the dough is then folded in the bowl and then left to rest again for 12 hours, at which point it should hopefully double in size, sometimes more.
Let's switch focus a little bit over to driving.
Driving?
I don't know.
Is this to explain why I'm always in the driver's seat and you're not?
I haven't driven once yet, and it's not that I can't drive, but Jessie gets car sick, so she ends up doing a lot of driving. We did come up with an agreement early on that I would drive the long distances, like freeways, and you would drive the windy roads. Yeah. But so far, I haven't driven at all, and it's been great.
We've been moving so slowly. Like, we honestly will most days move maybe half an hour maximum, which is amazing. And longest days would be 3 hours, so it's really not that bad. And I really enjoy driving Billie. She's good.
Yeah. How was it getting used to, I guess, like, being, you know, city slickers, driving small cars our whole life? How has it been, you know, getting used to driving a van?
I had a lot of practice driving the van around Sydney for a couple of months before we left, so I feel like I can tackle just about anything, except the slightly impatient country road drivers who don't like getting stuck behind a camper van. I can be going the speed limit, like, I'm not going slow, and they're like, bloody camper in front of me, and they want to get ahead. Yeah. Which is fine. I'm happy with that. I can pull over as many times as I want. It's all good. I'm here to go slow, so it's okay.
If you were to go back, maybe, to the start of this trip, Is there
Yeah.
anything that you would do differently?
Look, I am planning to do another cull of my stuff for sure. There are just like lots of bitsy things around, and I wear essentially the same outfit every day. So I feel like if this is my winter outfit, then I'm probably only going to have 2 summer outfits as well.
Yeah.
This is not something necessarily I would do differently to the start of the trip, but man, do I regret not being able to walk from the living space in this van into the driver's cabin area. That is annoying. Yeah. I'm not a fan of that, but
Yeah.
hey, it's okay.
You've been saying that since the start. That was one of my questions, actually.
Oh, okay.
What would you change about the van? But you've already answered it.
Is there anything that you would change about the van? That you don't?
I'm very good at adjusting to things. Like, I can adjust to an environment, and like I usually change myself to figure it out.
Yeah. Interesting.
So there's not a lot. What has it been like finding cool places to explore every day? What has that process been like?
I have FOMO sometimes. I think it requires a lot of research, and I don't always have like the time and energy to do the research. Perhaps we could be going a little bit slower than we are to find those places. Or you think we're going slow enough already?
I don't know we could go any slower, but yeah.
I don't know. Like maybe it's
I don't think it's about going slower. I think it does take a lot more work than you would expect. Well, I expect at least. Figuring out planning a new area. What are the places that you need to go to? Like, it's quite tricky to actually. And I think you can get recommendations from people, and that's really, really helpful and useful. But actually, kind of a lot of the times where we'll be, well, mine went off.
Once we wake the dough up from its 12-hour slumber, we put some flour on the bench and pour the dough onto the bench. We then fold it again. Then we're up to the final proofing stage where we put the dough. I don't know why we say we, because Rowan does everything. Then we get to the final proofing stage where we pop it in the baking paper inside the bowl or the cast iron or something, and then let that rest for another hour.
A lot of the times when we kind of hit a new area, we kind of realize, we skipped something, or we wish we could go back an hour, and which we can always do. Trickier than probably we anticipated to kind of make the most of every day. It's
funny because we started this journey, and the number one question everybody would ask is, what are you really excited to see? Like, where are you most excited to go to? And it was not like, it was never about that at the beginning. True. It was more like, it's the lifestyle that we want to try, and any cool place that we see is kind of like a nice side effect of that. But now that we're here and seeing places, it's like, oh my God, there's so much beauty, and I want to suck it all in. And you just can't. And so
it's a testament to Australia. Like, there's just so much to see, and like probably, and this is why you meet people who have been living this way for 15 years or longer. Because they just keep doing, and visiting the same places because there's new things to see. Yeah. Right?
But we've done pretty well. Like, what we do see, I'm like, this is great.
Yeah. What about finding places to sleep? Obviously, like a lot of people doing this will be on a budget like us. How has that been? Like, finding free places, combination of free but also worth staying in and are beautiful.
Yeah, well, look, I have to say that there are some great facilities around. Like, there are a lot of designated free camps around that are often organised by local councils with the intention of providing somewhere for travellers to stay so that they then spend their money in small businesses and in town, which I think great initiative, but they're always in the worst places.
Which is,
for the most part, the one we stayed at last night was next to the airport and like the industrial estate and next to the main road, and so it was not the best. And there's been a few that are like that. There are some that we've stayed at that are amazing nature reserves, and you can stay there for 7 days for free. So it really just depends.
Yeah.
Don't tell the state, but I would really like to do a bit more stealth camping. It's really quite tricky. Like, you hear lots of horror stories of massive fines, which then negates the whole free camping. And also there are really like angry no camping signs
Everywhere.
everywhere.
You get used to like driving into a new town. It's like, welcome to this town. Absolutely do not camp here.
RV friendly, don't camp.
What's it been like living, like adjusting to the limited space?
The limited space, it was hard. I actually used to feel this deep-seated frustration every morning when I wanted to get ready and Rowan was in my way. But that's gone. Like, I feel totally a lot more natural and can, navigate the space without hitting my elbows and hitting my head all the time.
Obviously, we're not the tallest of people. Sleeping has never been an issue. Although we have bumped our heads on the cupboard probably, I reckon once a day for this trip, at least. Sometimes just repeatedly. I bump my head and then 5 minutes later I bump my head again in the same place.
But I feel that we're settling into a really good rhythm now. We noted the other day that we had a record, like, getting out of the campsite, hour and a half. It was good.
Yeah, it's a good question. How has it been getting ready for the day, doing everything that you need to kind of like, for us to even move, to start driving?
Yeah.
And then the other side as well, like packing up and getting ready for bed. Because obviously there's a bit of conversion involved and careful about putting things away before we start driving.
I think that there's some efficiencies that we can still work into it because we tend to be a little bit lazy with like the washing up from the night before is still drying. Like we can't move quickly, and it would be nice to be able to sort of get up and go and maybe have breakfast in a nice location because at the moment we're sort of having breakfast in the rest stop or whatever. And
stealth camping as well kind of forces you to do that because you have to get out of the area and you can't just start like setting up how to cook.
Working out that routine, we still got to get there.
Yes.
We have a bed table conversion, which is somewhat of a contentious topic, I know, among the van life community.
Is it?
There are people who either absolutely hate having to make their bed every day, or those who love having the extra space that it affords by having a convertible bed. Originally, I was like, God, no, I will never make my bed every day. I am a lazy person when it comes to chores. And you know what? I'm on board. I'm on board with the convertible bed. I think it's good, and it sort of gives me a nice purpose, and it changes the space, and I'm sold. I'm sold on the convertible bed.
Yeah,
don't be scared of the convertible bed. It's okay.
Pause. You need to go look at this.
Once you have proofed the dough, we finally get to the cooking stage, and that's where things start to get a little bit funky. So we put our Dutch oven on top of the cast iron pan, and that's just to help distribute the heat. This is all done over a very low flame because you don't want to just burn the loaf from the bottom. After 40 minutes or so on the stovetop, we take the lid off and check that it's predominantly cooked through. It shouldn't look raw, but it also won't look super baked. That's when we take it out and flip the loaf so that we can now brown the top. This only takes about 15 minutes, but you want to keep checking on it so it doesn't burn.
How has it been, I guess, budgeting for the trip? How has it been kind of like sticking to that budget? And then like, what have been some of like the biggest expenses? That's actually 3 questions in one. So good luck.
I know, and I think I only got the first and the last one. Anyway,
Oh, no.
money. Yeah. My method for budgeting is to be as stingy as possible and hope for the best. Rowan has been tracking it. And we're doing all right? Like we're around $500 a week in terms of expenses, roughly, like give or take. We obviously had some big expenses in the first couple of weeks, which was very frustrating. When we were having all of the plumbing issues, we obviously had to go to professionals and get parts replaced, pay for labor. We also had to get the van serviced, and it was a whole bunch more expensive than we thought it was going to be. What was the other part of the question?
we haven't really been holding ourselves back too much. Like we've been kind of like careful about where we're spending money. We're not splurging and throwing money at everything.
I did buy a vintage mirror for the van, and it cost $150. So there's that. But also we do balance a lot of free camping with paid sites. Like we have paid for sites when we want a little bit of comfort. I think without that you burn out really quickly. Or maybe we're still getting used to it as well. Like we might do a bit more free camping as we get more comfortable with this situation.
I think originally when we set the budget, we were like, once a week we're going to pay for a site.
Yep.
And it's been
Yep.
a lot
It's
more
been
than
a lot
that.
more than that. We're talking about $20 a night.
Yeah.
So like it's not nothing insane. But then you can get water and a shower.
Yeah.
And you can hook up and you know that you can be in walking distance to where you want to be as well, which is really
that's
cool.
the other thing.
Yeah.
Practically, I've been using this app called One Money to sort of bit quick shout out to them.
Not
I was looking
sponsored.
for not sponsored at all. Absolutely not. Look, we had a lot of trouble early on because like finding an app that we really wanted to use that was
Yeah.
simple enough, right?
Yeah.
Because everything was like connect your bank account and it would track like
Yeah.
every like automated. This was just such an easy way to like, manually kind of put in each expense and just kind of follow along to see exactly how we're spending our money. So massive shout out to that developer. In terms of biggest expense, I think it's actually been fairly kind of equal between like, groceries and just like eating out for like coffees and
Interesting.
that. Like camping is a bit lower. That's kind of really, I don't know, maybe an eighth of our expense so
Oh,
far.
How's our petrol cost?
Petrol is around an eighth as well. Again, like we're moving pretty slowly, so
Yeah,
we're not
that's
actually
true.
using a heap of
Yeah.
petrol. It's a cost of living crisis at the moment. We knew things
Totally.
would be expensive, and
Yep.
you know, some bakeries out here super cheap, and that's
Yep.
money well spent, in my opinion.
Yep.
Final question: what are you most excited by?
What am
about?
I most excited by?
What are you most excited about?
Oh, like going into the future?
Yeah.
Ooh. More nature, getting more creative, and meeting more people.
Wow. Where did you go? Keen for like the North Queensland area. Or
Yeah,
like head to
yeah.
the tropics up there.
Yeah.
I just love it.
Yeah,
And, like,
same. You should see
where-
my Google Maps, like, saved places is just all up in Cairns.
Yes. Yes. And also seeing my relatives around Townsville, it's going to be really good. And then lastly, my mum grew up in Julia Creek. She's talked about it a lot to me throughout her life. And I'm just really keen to go there. And
Have you
know,
never been there?
No, I've never been there. It's like,
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
no. And there's also heaps of like dinosaur
Yeah.
stuff out there, which is
Dinosaur
just
stuff.
very cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Alright.
I'm excited about that too. Yeah, that's fantastic. I feel like that was a really nice reflection, and it's great to take moments like this to talk through this kind of stuff. Yeah, thank you for following along. It's really cool.
Yeah, it's been very cool seeing everybody kind of following on, like
Yeah.
commenting on like very
Yeah.
sweet things and providing tips and advice, asking
Really loving
questions.
it.
That's just
It's kept me motivated, and I'm having a lot of fun creating these videos. Thank you so much. And if you haven't yet, please do like and subscribe. We love having you here as part of our journey. But now it's time to see how this loaf of bread has turned out. I honestly wouldn't have believed you if you told me it was possible to cook a loaf of sourdough on a stovetop while living out of a van. But here we are. Oh, look at that air bubble. It's got a pocket. It's such a super treat to have freshly made bread while living on the road. That's amazing.